Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
And the war machine won last Tuesday. I talked about it briefly on Wednesday. Tuesday, of course, was the New Hampshire first in the nation presidential primaries, where the Republicans and the Democrats battled it out. And actually, a little known bit of info, I finished second in the New Hampshire primaries. Yes, I did. I came in second among Libertarian Party presidential candidates that received write-in votes in the New Hampshire primaries. I received 2 votes, according to the Secretary of State. Gary Johnson received a total of 42, 33 of those in the Republican race, 9 of those as write-ins in the Democratic race. The speculative candidate not yet announced, but keeps hinting about it, Jesse Ventura, also received 2 votes. One of his was in the Republican race, one in the Democratic race, and Austin Peterson received 1 vote in the one write-in vote in the Democratic primary. So that means that there were 3 of the current Libertarian Party presidential candidates that received a write-in, according to the Secretary of State, or rather at least 1 write-in, according to the Secretary of State. Gary Johnson winning among Libertarians, I coming in second, and Austin Peterson coming in third. Speculative potential candidate Jesse Ventura tying me for second place. Now, I've got an interesting story here that's kind of related, and yes, this is going to be kind of an election-related episode, just because we are in the midst of the election season. There was the passing over the weekend of Justice Antonin Scalia, and now there's a bunch of debate about whether or not President Obama can or should appoint someone to the Supreme Court. Mitch McConnell, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz, all 3 saying that Barack Obama should not do so, and I think they're saying that he does not have the authority, which is absolute BS, but I digress. So that happened, and then, we've got the South Carolina primaries coming up this weekend for, I forget if it's the Republicans or the Democrats, and then next weekend for the other. And, of course, this weekend I will be at the New Hampshire Liberty Forum in Manchester, New Hampshire. So if you're in the New England area, come out and see me. Next weekend, the final weekend of February, I will be down in Biloxi, Mississippi, at the Alabama-Mississippi Libertarian Party Joint Convention. And there's also a presidential debate that's happening on Saturday, the 27th of February. The following week, I will be in Richmond, Virginia, just outside of Richmond, actually. The week after that, I will be, or rather the weekend after that, I will be in Colorado at the Libertarian Party of Colorado State Convention. And March the 19th, I will be down in Philadelphia at the LP Pennsylvania Convention. Plans for April are still underway. Several conventions happening, and I may or may not be able to attend the California convention the first weekend of April. I forget what's the second weekend of April, and I'm confirmed for the Louisiana Libertarian Party convention that third weekend of April, which would be April 15th. So tax season for those of you who file. So now let me jump into, I've got an interesting story about a computer simulation of the election. But before I get into that, the chair of the Democratic National Committee admitted something on television that she probably should not have admitted, and something that I think a lot of people probably are not going to even realize she said what she said. And let me explain what I mean when I say people won't realize that she said what she said. Because the way she said her statement about the unpledged delegates, the superdelegates, if you will, to the Democratic Party's convention, she was asked about that, and she gave an answer that really quite bluntly explains the reason and the rationale for having superdelegates is to hamper any grassroots effort. And I'll give you the full quote, but first let me explain what these superdelegates are and why this is even an issue. So, again, the New Hampshire primary was last Tuesday, and Bernie Sanders won overwhelmingly, 60% to 38% against Hillary, and then the other, just over 1% went to Martin O'Malley and a bunch of write-in candidates and a couple people that I believe had dropped out of the race. O'Malley had dropped out of the race by the time of the election. Anyway, however, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton left New Hampshire with the same number of delegates. How is that possible when Bernie trounced her 60 to 38? Well, that's because in the Democratic Party, they have what are called superdelegates, meaning that they're people that are delegates and they're not pledged to any candidate. They are not awarded based on results of a primary. They're not awarded based on results of a caucus. They are awarded based on Democratic Party rules that give certain elected officials and certain party leaders votes regardless of, the outcome. And they're unpledged, meaning that they can pledge to whomever they want, and they can actually wind up, switching from one candidate to another during the course of the election. Of course, up until the convention that happens, and this year that will be happening in July, I believe. So let me give you the quote here from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, where she is asked the question by Jake Tapper of CNN. He says, Hillary Clinton lost to Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire by 22 percentage points, the biggest victory in a contested Democratic primary there since John F. Kennedy. But it looks as though Clinton and Sanders are leaving the Granite State with the same number of delegates in their pockets because Clinton has the support of New Hampshire superdelegates. These party insiders. What do you tell voters who are new to the process who say this makes them feel like it's all rigged? Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, responds, and I quote, Well, let me just make sure that I can clarify exactly what was available during the primaries in Iowa and in New Hampshire. The unpledged delegates are a separate category. The only thing available on the ballot in a primary and a caucus is the pledged delegates, those that are tied to the candidate that are pledged to support, and they receive a proportional number of delegates going into our convention. Unpledged delegates exist really to make sure that party leaders and elected officials don't have to be in a position where they are running against grassroots activists. I will read this again and explain when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
Unpledged delegates exist really to make sure that party leaders and elected officials don't have to be in a position where they are running against grassroots activists. That is the quote from Democratic National Committee Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I will continue her quote and the explanation of exactly what it is that she's saying in just a moment. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about a way that you can keep your money in the free market, assuming that you use free market money and that you promote Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world. You need Spendabit in your arsenal. Spendabit is the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. Spendabit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants like Overstock.com and, of course, Free Press publications. Keep your money in the free economy. Spend a bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com. And if you're a Bitcoin-accepting merchant, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. That's spendabit.fppradio.com. spendabit.fppradio.com. So, the chair of the DNC was asked the question about superdelegates and how she responds to people that say that it makes them feel like the system is rigged. And she said, and I quote, "Unpledged delegates exist really to make sure that party leaders and elected officials don't have to be in a position where they are running against grassroots activists. We are, as a Democratic Party, really highlight and emphasize inclusiveness and diversity at our convention. And so we want to give every opportunity to grassroots activists and diverse, committed Democrats to be able to participate and attend and be a delegate at the convention. And so we separate out those unpledged delegates to make sure there isn't competition between them." So here, again, she says at least twice that the superdelegates exist to prevent competition. Doesn't sound very Democratic to me, does it? Yeah, not at all. Tapper then responds, "I'm not sure that that answer would satisfy an anxious young voter, but let's move on." And so then they move on to something else. But I do think that it's very interesting about these unpledged delegates. The fact that the DNC chair admitted that unpledged delegates are there to prevent competition. And, well, there are ways that people have often attempted to forecast the various competitions within presidential elections. And, well, Vice has an article about somebody that did just that, and the results might be shocking. They go through the history about the very first time someone tried to use a computer to predict an election, and apparently it was back in 1981. There was a computer program called President-Elect. And then in 1992, there was one called Power Politics made by the Associated Press. And it garnered some headlines when it correctly predicted that Bill Clinton would win that election. And so now we move to 2016. I'm going to skip all of the backstory about, the previous ones, but now they have a program called President Infinity, and Vice says that it is the spiritual successor to power politics, offering a complicated and thorough simulation with all the visual panache of an Excel spreadsheet. In some ways, President Infinity offers too much detail. You'll have to plan your travel itinerary, schedule speeches, prepare for debates, and manage your advertisements. Everything costs money, so you'll need to fundraise to stay competitive. You also need to manage an in-game currency called political capital, which can be used to buy surrogates who will campaign on your behalf, as well as important third-party endorsements. And what they mean here by third party is not minor political party, but endorsements of people that are not necessarily within your political party. So the endorsement of some political action committee, some nonprofit somewhere, some group of lobbyists, etc. None of these actions, they say, affect voters directly. Instead, everything you and your opponents do change your candidate's momentum. When momentum is high, you win supporters. When it's low, you lose them. And then it goes on to say that if your campaign is too negative, it can backfire, etc., etc. There's a lot to pay attention to. There's also a way to make President Infinity play itself. Simply choose a candidate with little money and no name value. Someone without a Wikipedia page is a safe option. And don't take any actions during your turn. The computer-controlled frontrunners will duke it out among themselves, leaving you free to watch the action. They ran some simulations, and this President Infinity game, unlike previous simulation election games, this one includes the primaries. And so the author of this piece says that he ran the simulation 11 times, and Hillary Clinton only lost the nomination twice, both times to potential speculative Democratic candidate who has not officially announced, but there is speculation that somehow he will still wind up getting the nomination through a brokered convention. That would be none other than Vice President Joe Biden. The article says, sorry, Bernie fans, despite his New Hampshire success, according to President Infinity, Sanders does not stand a chance. With the Republicans, it's a different story. In most President Infinity runs, Donald Trump drops out of the election by late March, thanks to a combination of momentum-killing debate performances, public speaking gaffes, and media scandals. In fact, after 10 simulations, the Republican card was caught in a 5-way tie, Trump, Rubio, Cruz, Carly, and Jeb all scoring 2 nominations. And at this point, Carly has actually dropped out. Carly Fiorina has dropped out of the race at this point. He says it took a tie-breaking 11th run to crown Marco Rubio the Republican candidate. Even then, Fiorina gave him a run for his money. So the simulation here is still off a little bit because, again, Fiorina in real life has dropped out. And they are speculating Hillary to be the Democratic nominee, which I think most people would wind up agreeing with. I still think that there might be something strange happen that would wind up giving Joe Biden the nomination at convention. But I digress and continue. In the ensuing Clinton versus Rubio battle, President Infinity predicts a Rubio win 3 out of 5 times. On one run, Rubio won the popular vote, but Clinton walked away with the presidency. In the other 2 Election Day polls predicted a Clinton victory, only for Rubio to emerge the winner. As in real life, President Infinity's polling is not entirely accurate. It's going to be a close race, they say, but according to President Infinity, Marco Rubio will be the next president. What do you think? President Rubio or President Clinton? Either one scares me. Stay tuned. There's more on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerary supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's FANS.fppradio.com.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of Fiend Phone right now at fiendphone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve Fiend Phone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to fiendphone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's fiendphone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, Echo, November, phone.com.
Fiend Phone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Well, political infinity is not the only one. And when I say not the only one, obviously I mean not the only one this year, because there have been the previous president's simulation things. There's a simulator called the Political Machine 2016. And, well, Political Machine 2016 disagrees with the outcome of President Infinity. And the author of the article over at Vice says that Political Machine is simpler and more polished than President Infinity. And Political Machine has a friendly, responsive user interface and players' actions, delivering speeches, deploying advertisements, and building regional campaign headquarters have a direct effect on states' electorates. There's none of this momentum stuff. Your actions either win voters or they don't. The Political Machine is also the only election game that asks players to take a stand on the issues. In most games, President Infinity included, you can choose the topics of your speech, but you don't actually choose a position. In the Political Machine, you need to advocate policy that both appeals to undecided voters and actually won't tick off your own party. That's not as easy as it sounds. In 6 different games of the Political Machine, Hillary won the White House 4 times, twice when controlled by the author of the article, and twice when the author was controlling or managing Rubio. That makes sense, he says. In the Political Machine, the deck is stacked in Clinton's favor from the beginning. Clinton has higher stamina and fundraising ratings than Rubio and starts the game with more money. Basically, Clinton can get stuff done faster and more efficiently. That's a big advantage in the Political Machine and not a bad quality for a president either. That's 1 game for Rubio and 1 for Clinton. So the mobile title, Campaign Manager, might need to be used to break the deadlock. As it turned out, it did not. Campaign Manager only lets players take a few actions. You can create advertisements, mount a ground campaign, and hire volunteers. That's it. There's just one currency, money, which is replenished by tapping on dollar signs that appear during the game. Both candidates start with the same amount of cash in the bank, and nobody has an advantage. Campaign Manager is too simple to use as a predictive tool. Generally, whoever the player is controlling wins. But by stripping an election simulator down to its base components, Campaign Manager reveals a common philosophy that all these games share. In election games, the presidential race isn't a clash of ideologies or personalities. It's a contest to see who can manage their resources most effectively. What a candidate says doesn't matter as much as how and when. Votes aren't earned, they're bought and sold. In other words, when it comes to who's really going to win the White House later this year, Video games provide us with one clear winner: whoever is willing to pay the most for it. And I have to say that I agree. And it's really going to wind up being interesting to see how everything unfolds on the Republican side. Because if the simulation here from Political Infinity or President Infinity is accurate, then Donald Trump will probably drop out sometime mid-March, which would be after Super Tuesday and possibly after the lesser Tuesday, if you will, the good Tuesday, the not-so-Super Tuesday, because there's 2 Tuesdays in March where there's a lot of elections. So there's March 1st, which is Super Tuesday. That's the one with the most elections happening that day. And then March 15th, there are a good many elections happening that day as well. And I do believe that after that March 15th primary date, you will wind up seeing the Republican field winnow down from, I think there's now like 8 candidates that are still, the major candidates that are still actively campaigning. I think you're going to see that drop to below 5. And it's really going to be interesting to see who winds up endorsing whom. Will Ted Cruz wind up endorsing Marco Rubio? Will he endorse Jeb Bush? Will he endorse John Kasich? Will Kasich drop out? Or is Kasich in the race to try securing the vice presidential nomination, which is a speculation that a lot of people have. And again, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I honestly thought that John Kasich was going to do a little bit better in New Hampshire than he did. And I'm surprised that Donald Trump did as well as he did. Yes, I know he only got about 35% of the vote, but still, that was almost 20 percentage points better than that of John Kasich, who skipped going to Iowa to do some extra campaigning in New Hampshire. So who will wind up taking momentum into and out of South Carolina? That is yet to be decided. But, of course, you can guarantee that I will keep an eye on the race and give my thoughts as I get a chance. So let me change subjects here in the last couple of minutes and talk about something that it was very interesting at the beginning of the year when it was announced that Mein Kampf and the Diary of Anne Frank were both entering the public domain on the same day. And, well, apparently that's not entirely accurate. Yes, the Diary of Anne Frank is in public domain in Europe. However, under U.S. copyright law, the book is still in the not public domain, meaning that someone still claims the copyright on the Diary of Anne Frank until 2047. I also saw 2042, but in either case, it's going to be a long time before it winds up being in the public domain. The story from the BBC says the Diary of Anne Frank has been removed from the book repository Wikisource after the site became aware it had fallen foul of copyright law. The site briefly hosted a digital copy of Het Achterhuis, the first version of the diary compiled by Anne's father, Otto, which was published in 1947. It had been put online in the belief that the copyright expired on January 1st of this year, 70 years after the death of Anne Frank. However, according to the BBC, the book is under copyright law or copyright protection until 2047. Wikisource voluntarily removed the book. The Wikimedia Foundation, which runs Wikipedia as well as Wikisource, said its action was an unfortunate example of the overreach of the U.S. current copyright law. In general, the U.S. copyright for works published before 1975 is 95 years from the date of publication. Foreign works of countries that are treaty partners of the United States are covered as if they are U.S. works. The confusion happened because of European copyright law that says books are copywritten until 70 years after the author's death and then can be reproduced freely. Anne Frank died in 1945, which suggests her elements of the original Dutch language version of the diary are now copyright free, but not so much. I'll post the links in the show notes. Don't forget, every Wednesday I answer your questions. AMA at FPPradio.com.